join me in welcoming Dyann Stewart. Dyann, please.
So, good afternoon, everyone. As Tommy said, my name is Dyann Stewart, and I am scared shitless to be here today and share my personal journey with you of resilience. So, the working title of this presentation was My Fucked Up Journey to Resilience, but I decided not to swear because I'm a grown-up. So, instead, the title is Resilience, From Surviving to Thriving. So, throughout this presentation, I will take you on a very shortened journey and share some invaluable lessons from people who have helped me survive and then those who have helped me thrive. So before I met these people, I was unable to walk 50 metres to the end of the street and unable to boil a jug and put the toaster on at the same time. Now, after their help, I was able to do my first commercial site visit yesterday since the accident, and we had to climb 6 flights of stairs, which was not my happy place. Even these little ones here were like, wah. But life often presents us with unexpected challenges that test our strength and resilience. In my case, it was an e-bike accident that resulted in me breaking 30 bones. The experience was life-changing, forcing me to confront my physical, mental and emotional limitations head on, boof, literally. However, instead of giving in to fear and despair, I chose to rise above my circumstances, that sounds very fancy, doesn't it, and embark on a path of resilience and growth. And this panel today, it was, well done NZIOB people, because it really does fit. Because the conference theme today is people, performance and productivity. Therefore, I will focus on how resilience was the key to transforming my own personal behaviours and provide insight into the techniques I use to improve my performance and productivity while on my journey from surviving to thriving. Yay, it worked. Cool. Right. While we don't have much time today, I thought it was important to understand who I was and how driven I was before the accident. And the panel today, they talked about, just one of the many things they talked about just now was those that work 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. That was me. And I've been told multiple times during my rehab that most people with personality types like this result in difficulties dealing with the reality that to recover, we actually have to stop the doing. We have to stop everything. So to introduce myself, my little slides here, I spent 28 years in the construction industry, all at the system supply level of the window and doors. So I loved seeing White Aluminium's curtain wall system yesterday as part of the site visit. From a personal perspective, in 1998 I began kickboxing and kung fu. And in 2004, my husband and I spent 2 months full-time training just outside the Shaolin Temple, 7 hours a day, 6 days a week, which was an incredible but hugely challenging experience. By 2010, I was a senior manager with a team of 10. I was once told that New Zealand businesses tend to promote those who are good at their jobs, but not necessarily good people managers. And it was even mentioned at the panel today, we're promoted, but are we actually good managers? I don't know. So, with that little insult rattling around in my head, I felt I needed to modify my experience from being technical to transform into a better manager. Therefore, in my ultimate wisdom, I decided at the age of 41, a Bachelor of Business was the best way to do that, because I thought an MBA, what are they called, marriage breakup something, so I didn't want that. So, why? I don't know, because that was an 8-year journey, and that was completed 1 month before the accident, so phew. And you know what? While I'm on that, I'm going to hike the Himalayas with a friend for 14 days, because even though I've never hiked before, it can't be that hard, can it? And while I'm out there, I'm going to visit Tibet, because visiting an occupied country, that sounds like fun. So, while I'm at it, I'm still going here, why not add a 200-hour yoga teacher training program into it? Because I've been doing yoga for 5 years, and the training can't be that hard. You're right. So, I had all these balls juggling in the air, and I thought I had it under control, but I didn't. When the COVID lockdowns occurred, I was working remotely for a company in New Plymouth. I was tired, overly stressed, possibly menopausal, but definitely burnt out, and that was a word used today. Because within 1 month, I had changed my career towards a 12-month 9-to-5 contract. I then bought an e-bike, because this would be when my husband and I would enjoy our spare time together instead of always doing. 2 days after I bought the bike, I was lying flat on my back on a concrete driveway, unable to breathe, and my life changed. Without knowing my injuries, my husband sat me up, which didn't help, but he would later tell me he just thought I was winded. And then 2 people who knew my husband were out for a walk. He had just finished the job with them 2 weeks before. He's a plasterer. They were both doctors. They laid me back down and helped me calm my breathing so I could catch my breath. I guess that's what happens when you crash in Devonport. You randomly run into 2 doctors who save your life. So, in terms of injuries, what did I break? Well, just about fucking everything. Not everything, but quite a few excruciating and essential parts of my body. Most of my injuries were at the rear as I hit the curb, came off the bike, flew over a bank because I was meant to crash on grass, but the grass turned out to be a bank. My upper back, this bit, hit the retaining wall on the way through, and then I landed flat on my back 10 metres away from the original crash site. I only remember hitting the curb thinking, oops. I broke the bike helmet, so there was quite a bit of impact on the back of my head, and I have ongoing concussion symptoms which I need to tightly manage and work within my capabilities. Whoever saw me today with headphones on is due to hearing sensitivities. I just can't handle the noise. And I also bailed on 2 site visits yesterday, on the other 2 site visits, because those 6 floors nearly killed me. But I broke both shoulder blades, which is my scapulars. I was complaining about the pain on my right side in hospital, and the doctor, in a very even tone, said, well, the right side's barely broken. And it wasn't until nearly a year later that I saw an x-ray and realised he must have been making a joke. A bit of a dry joke, but it was a joke, because the right side was only broken in half and displaced, whereas my left shoulder blade was smashed and displaced. So yeah, the right was barely broken. Show of hands for anyone that has broken a rib before. Anybody broken a rib? Ooh. Yeah, so they're painful little bastards, aren't they? Well, I broke and displaced 6 ribs on the left, and to even it out, I broke and displaced 6 ribs on the right. So due to the multiple broken ribs, I had multiple hemothoraxes. Yep, that's the one. Multiple hemothoraxes, which is when the blood collects in the pleural cavity between your lungs and your rib cage. And my oxygen levels were really low, and that's why my breathing was difficult. Due to these injuries, I was in the high dependency ward for about 7 days, which is not long enough to claim insurance, unfortunately. They need you in there for 14 days, damn it. My left knee, I tore my ACL, my PCL, my MCL, and a broken tibia fragment, which was attached to the ligament, flopped over and landed in my knee joint. So that was just a little bit painful. The piece of bone stayed in my knee for 6 weeks. It then took them 6 weeks to put a brace on the knee, so the knee and the bone fragment were just flopping around if anybody rolled me over, and there are no words to describe that pain other than ouchie. I broke my right ankle, and he was great, had no problems with that, but the left ankle, that was a mere sprain, and that ankle is still a problem today. My neck, I broke my occipital condyle, which attaches your skull to your spine, so that's kind of important. I broke C6, C7 in 3 places. On my upper back, I broke T1 in 2 places, T3, T4, T5, T6, T7, T10, and T11. Then in the lower back, only L3 suffered an M-plate compression. And while I didn't break my coccyx, I have ongoing numbness, pins and needles, and sitting tolerance issues. Yay! The issue with my injuries was that the broken bones high up in my neck could have resulted in death or quadriplegia, and the lower ones could have resulted in paraplegia. But they didn't. I broke into many things, but thankfully they were all repairable. And this is where that I understand medical professionals are there to help you survive. And they deal with whatever is urgent. Anything uncomfortable or painful, they deal with it with drugs. Lots and lots of drugs. I was on a full-time ketamine infusion and a morphine PC pump to keep the pain under control. And I pressed that little button every 2 minutes. But it didn't help because it was a 5-minute pump. Oh, and as a little bonus, the MRIs found lumps in my thyroid, which thankfully were not cancerous. Whoopee. Still, they removed half the thyroid just to be sure. Oh, the glorious days of 2021 and late 2022. Boo. So, this photo is 6 weeks into my 2.5-month stay in hospital and was taken just after my first knee surgery. I remember laying in the hospital bed and I was wondering how I was going to get through this because my spinal injuries were stabilised and I was kept in the orthopaedic ward. And a nurse would come in every day and said, "Have you mobilised yet? Have you mobilised? Have you got up and walked?" Because, if you've ever had knee surgery, they want you up and moving around. And it made me feel very incapable and quite afraid. Was I meant to mobilise with a broken neck or back? I had no idea, and nobody could tell me because I was in an ortho ward, not a spinal ward. Oops. The accident occurred just after COVID lockdown, and hospitals only allowed one visitor per day. My one person was my husband, who visited me in hospital every day for 2.5 months. After 1 month, my hospital adventure, he started bringing me dinner every night because hospital food really is the pits. It really is. It's that survive, not thrive situation again. And the food in hospital, yeah, it helps you survive, but it certainly does not help you thrive. I was isolated from friends and family. I was in immense pain, and by the time I was lying there, I was taken off the ketamine and fully attached to 170 milligrams of morphine. But once I got home, I found it difficult to adjust. I was very concerned about morphine addiction, and I think I watched too much TV. But once I got home, as I said, I found it difficult to adjust to feeling safe outside the hospital. I slept in a hospital bed in our lounge for 3 months after my return home, and I couldn't answer the phone, and I couldn't talk to people in person either, because my speech system would shut down, or I would start crying, but I wasn't actually sad or upset, but I just couldn't control my emotions. During this period, ACC attempted to send me back to work. Whoopee, because for whatever reason, that is part of the process. So I'm lying in a hospital bed, in a back brace, in a knee brace, in my lounge, and ACC tried to send me back to work. I mentioned earlier that I had switched jobs and signed a 12-month contract just a month before the accident. Following the accident, the company I was contracted to was really understanding. Nobody put pressure on me, not even ACC, to return back. ACC a little bit, but the company that I was working for was not putting pressure on me to return to work. But it just was not feasible for them, and it was not feasible for me. And as a result, I lost my job for the first time at the age of 49. I was told that my focus should be on rehabilitation and recovery. However, I was not given any instructions on how to proceed with the recovery process. The only advice I received from my original occupational therapist was to be patient and give it time. So I had to discover my own path to resilience. So I had some major concerns rattling around in my head, from drug addiction, too much TV, my inability to speak to people, my crying uncontrollably, and then there was the financial pressure, as I was the main salary earner in our household. But I am an extreme example of the need for resilience. So let's put serious health issues aside and look at our day-to-day working lives. How many times have you sat in traffic and felt extremely frustrated, or felt like the other driver has personally affronted you? And what about those who have experienced an email that has made your blood boil, or the times that you yell at a work colleague or a child? Resilience comes into play during tough times, but also in our everyday working and personal lives, when we've had enough of everything. You need to find that resilience inside of yourself to have a better day, or not yell at your co-workers, your partner, or your kids. I have worked on many construction sites, and I know that this audience has too. Have you noticed the difference between working on a site with a project manager who doesn't yell and who can think through problems logically and as a team? It was actually mentioned today on the panel this afternoon. And then compare that experience with other sites where the only option is anger and yelling because that is the only way to get idiots to listen. But then, if you lack the tools and a roadmap, how can you find a different you? How can you find one that isn't angry, sad, tired, or stressed, or just doesn't enjoy how the world engages with you? Because, remember, everyone's an idiot. We can't change other people's behaviours, but we can learn to regulate our nervous systems to ensure those around us are not the victims of our abuse. I have learnt over the past 2.5 years that just pushing through fatigue, pushing your feeling downs, or in my case, pushing through concussion symptoms, it doesn't work. My personality type is a driven achiever, but I had so many days where all I did was stay in bed. Chronic fatigue was something I always thought was a made-up word for lazy people, but I have since learnt that it's a state where your nervous system is completely dysregulated. Believe it or not, your nervous system is working extremely hard to keep you safe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One way it does this is to shut system down to conserve energy and use that energy elsewhere. In my case, the energy was being used to rebuild my broken bones and body. What I was doing needed to change, and I needed help to make that change. As I said, there was no roadmap for recovery. ACC doesn't hand you a list of therapies they support and does not provide guidance on managing your recovery. My other issue was that I could only concentrate for 15 minutes at a time, and the days were hard, the nights even harder. But my personality was to push. I was making everything worse as my nervous system had spiralled out of control. So how did I go from crying, socially anxious, to standing before you today sharing my story? Well, 5 months into my recovery, my occupational therapist changed and my new OT, Laura, recognised I was struggling and organised concussion therapy for me, which was the start of my journey to thriving. Bones heal, but concussion is an unpredictable beast. So for me, it's the unsung heroes who pick up the pieces after you leave hospital. I wasn't thriving. I didn't understand concussion. But with Laura and Belinda as my first unsung heroes, I started on my path. I've learnt a lot of recovering people give up at this point. You know, along the journey, it becomes too hard. So they stay in survival mode. They don't push through to the thriving stage. But I was determined not to stay as I was. I really wanted to boil the jug and make toast at the same time. So I asked Laura and Belinda a lot of questions, and I researched all the possible paths to recovery and started taking steps to improve my situation. When I talked to Pam about recounting my journey today, she described the process as me project managing my own recovery, and I'd never thought about it like that, but that's exactly what I was doing. And I'd like to share with you what I learnt while working with this fantastic group of people who supported me in my journey towards resilience from surviving to thriving. It was my responsibility, sadly, to find therapies that worked for my injuries, recovery and well-being. During my rehabilitation, there were times where I had up to 6 of these therapies going at once, so recovery was my full-time job. If I wasn't benefiting from a therapy, I would change it or move to another one. However, each type of therapy provided me with a new tool for my toolkit, which I have prepared for you as a takeaway. So I will begin my story at the end, because my most valuable lesson I only learnt 5 weeks ago, even though I've been on this journey since October 2021. So our nervous system has not evolved to adapt to our modern life, and it still responds to stimuli as if we're in a life or death situation. For example, an annoying email can trigger the same response as a tiger running towards us. Our nervous system when we are constantly hyper-aware, our body gets used to adrenaline rush and it craves it. But by staying in a hyper-aware state for prolonged periods can lead to chronic fatigue. anxiety or anger issues, or in my case, when you finally get stopped in your tracks, your nervous system is already burnt out and works extremely hard to keep you safe by shutting all systems down. Our past experiences are stored in our subconscious, and they can trigger visceral reactions when a similar situation arises. Our autonomic nervous system triggers our memories, which can activate the fight or flight response. An example of this is when you smell something and it activates a memory from your childhood. That's your autonomic nervous system kicking in. When we're in this heightened state of awareness, our body and mind focuses 100% on survival, and we use all of our resources to alter the situation. This can affect our behaviour, our thoughts, and interactions with others. However, our brain cannot differentiate the difference between real and perceived danger, and we get stuck in survival mode based on past regrets or future worries. We need to recognise when we're in this hyper-aware state and find ways to regulate our emotions and reactions to become more resilient. The first important step towards deactivating your fight and flight response is improving your sleep quality and taking naps when possible. So I was here for lunch and I had to go home and have a nap. Not joking. My OT Laura and neuroconcussion therapist Belinda were the first of my team to talk to me about stopping the constant doing. They advised me not to keep learning Spanish, to stop learning to play the guitar. Although these were things that I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. But these actions were making my condition worse. I could only concentrate for 15 minutes at a time, and by forcing myself to learn something new or by not taking a nap, I was driving my nervous system towards an even worse outcome, if that's possible. I was so used to being busy and constantly on the go that stopping the ability to learn or even just stopping for a nap was like trying to put a tired toddler to bed. I hated every nap I was forced to take because my instincts were that napping meant you weren't working towards your goal. But when we have poor sleep quality and don't nap when needed, our nervous system experiences even greater fatigue and an ongoing state of fight or flight. I thought, honestly, that I was a slave to my reactions because my personality drove me towards even worse fatigue and unhelpful thinking styles. But we must learn to get out of our own way. Improving your sleep quality and taking naps are great ways to improve your control over your nervous system. Then I found the empathetic Rebecca from Breathing Works. You may have heard the phrase, take a deep breath in. However, the learning behind that is not actually about the in-breath. Instead, it's the slow and deliberate out-breath that helps you rein in control of your nervous system. When you learn to control your nervous system, you can activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Don't worry about these terms. They're explained in the toolkit I've prepared for you, and there's a QR code at the end. So learning to breathe correctly is another important step towards achieving resilience and moving from surviving to thriving. So for me, learning how to breathe correctly required practice. I'd become a mouth breather since the accident. And for me, these three essential tools were instrumental in improving my breathing. Nose breathing, neti pot, I hated them, but neti pot, and nasal strips. They open up the nasal cavity during the night. Using these three devices allowed me to take control of my breath and learn to breathe through my nose, which is crucial because mouth breathing can trigger the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response. And I'm going to repeat myself again. You don't need to write all this down because there is a QR code at the end and a toolkit to take away. Working with Rebecca to retrain my breathing helped me understand the two parts of the nervous system. As I said, the sympathetic fight and flight response and the parasympathetic rest and digest response. To benefit from this, you need to be willing to improve your reactions to daily challenges. This is not a spiritual practice. You don't need to sit with your eyes closed and your hand on your heart and belly. All you need, it does help, honestly, it does help if you do that, but if it's not your jam, you only need to breathe through your nose, control your breath, and breathe from your belly, not high in your chest. Deep belly breathing helps your body recognise that you're in danger. Not in danger, sorry, not that you are in danger, that you're not in danger. And that's because when you breathe into your belly and take slower breaths, your autonomic nervous system recognises that you can't possibly be in danger because you can't breathe that slow when you're in danger. Breathing exercises like a power breather can strengthen your diaphragm and help you take bigger breaths. Deep belly breathing can shift your focus from short and shallow breaths to deeper, longer, slower breathing to help your nervous system feel safe. And for me, box breathing works wonders for headaches. Awareness of your surroundings is my less wanky word for mindfulness. Because I avoided mindfulness for quite some time, I associated it with, I honestly don't know what, but I avoided mindfulness. But rephrasing the word from mindfulness to awareness helped me use the tool successfully. Through awareness of your surroundings may sound complicated, it's really not. It's just as simple as sitting there quietly, focusing on the table in front of you, or the chair, or the cat, or the door, and just noticing what is around you. These exercises can help shift your nervous system from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, which can help you feel more at ease, less anxious, and in my case, help me feel safe. And that is where another rehab member comes in, Kirsty, my psychologist. Whenever I described my thoughts or feelings, she would say, "Ooh, I have a worksheet for that." And I had feelings of being unsafe throughout the night. I had poor sleep quality. And psychology was critical on my road to resilience, but I did not put it first on my list because just knowing this information, it wasn't enough. I didn't know how to control my nervous system, to regulate myself, to feel safe. I needed quality sleep, improved breathing techniques, and some meditation tools and to keep me in a state where I could down-regulate my nervous system, get out of my own way, and use Kirsty's tools to make everything make sense. For those of you who are hesitant to try meditation due to preconceived notions, it's not a spiritual practice. It is not girly. It might help to reframe your perspective. Meditation should be seen not as those, it should be seen as a mental form of training. It's a way to exercise the mind and strengthen it against the demand of daily life and activate your inner stability. Once you can down-regulate your nervous system with nose and belly breathing and box breathing and the tools for meditation such as awareness of self and awareness of your surroundings, you have the tools at your disposal to allow you to catch yourself in one of these unhelpful thinking styles. This slide contains a lot of information, but broken record, there will be the QR code, which covers all the information from today, and accidentally a bit more. I just kept going with the toolkit, and we have very limited time today, so today is a abridged version of my toolkit. My unhelpful thinking patterns were I should be doing more, I shouldn't be feeling like this, and catastrophizing, I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. I seriously thought I had a permanent brain injury and I would never be able to think normally again. However, everyone has their own negative thinking patterns and coping mechanisms based on their experiences since childhood. One of the tools I used was a course called Rewire Your Nervous System by Rachel Fernley. In that course, I learnt that if our parents' nervous system was dysregulated, we may have learnt detrimental behaviours that could have been passed down from generation to generation. As a result, we may not have learnt how to regulate our nervous system when faced with life's challenges. To overcome childhood learned behaviours and rephrase unhelpful patterns, we need to catch ourselves having them and rephrase that negative thinking into a more positive thought. Once we've identified our negative thinking patterns, the toolkit provides positive alternatives to replace them. If recovery and the path to resilience were easy, we would all be chilled beings in a world without war or angry emails at 6 a.m. Nonetheless, it's important to remember the saying, what you think, you become. Therefore, rephrasing your thoughts into positive ones is crucial for resilience and moving from surviving to thriving. Since the accident, I've been unable to move or think at the pace of the world around me, but I had to find tools to help me understand and translate it. For around 18 months, I couldn't read on the computer, iPad, or even large print books. However, despite my hearing sensitivity, I could selectively listen to audiobooks, so I started using the Libby app. and which provides free access to the New Zealand library system for ebooks and audiobooks with just a library card. So although there are fiction and non-fiction titles, I mainly used it for fun stuff. I wasn't learning anything. Due to my difficulty concentrating, I felt uncomfortable in conversations. Therefore, I started using Otter AI, which translates conversations. I mainly use it when I'm writing technical articles or doing interviews. Also, annoyingly, the AI technology pops into online meetings I'm in, even if I don't ask it to. It ensures that my notes are accurate because I can no longer remember things, including the fact that I'm reading from a script today. And it was not written by AI, and you'll know it's not written by AI because it's got swear words in it, and AI didn't like swear words. I also started using chat on AI on my PC and phone. I've tried many AI writing platforms, but landed on this one, which provides an excellent shell to interject my personality and language. Skynet will not take over the human race because I still have to be involved in the formatting and the language evolved around the shell that the AI creates. But I do use Grammarly, which is another AI app, to improve the AI text. So technically I use AI to improve AI. So, oh dear, maybe Skynet is coming to take over. So, your first QR code. Woo! Anybody want to get a phone out? Nobody gives a shit. Oh, yeah, you do. Oh, thank you. That makes me feel a little bit better. In April 2023, my medical certificate stated I could work for 3 hours a week. Despite this limitation, I decided to start my own consulting company, assuming nobody would want to hire an employee with such a limited capacity. With only a few of these skills I've talked about under my belt, I built a website and told colleagues about my new venture. My first client was Techniform New Zealand, and it was a project that involved calculating the upfront carbon emissions of New Zealand manufactured windows and doors compared to imported UPVC and thermally broken windows. And I'll be presenting the findings at the New Zealand Green Building Council Housing Summit in May. But carbon accounting is not a topic I recommend undertaking when only 3 hours of work capacity a week. It was a tough road. But through trial and many errors, I learned valuable lessons in the past year about controlling my nervous system and developing resilience. I'm now at 18 hours capability a week because I learnt that the journey from surviving to thriving is an ongoing and dynamic process. We must continually revisit and reinforce the lessons learned to make them a habit. Next QR code for the toolkit. Oh, you guys are making me feel good. Thank you. I've been on this journey for 2.5 years and I've learnt a lot. You don't need to go to extremes like me and have an e-bike accident to use the toolkit available through this QR code. You can learn now, before anything extreme happens, about how to regulate yourself towards the parasympathetic nervous system. These tools will allow you to engage more easily with your family, friends and co-workers. They will also take you on a personal journey towards resilience, from surviving to thriving. And who wouldn't want that? If you need more assistance with resilience, I'm creating 2 courses, one called TRP, or Team Resilience Programs for Groups, and PRP, Personal Resilience Program for Individuals. And the details are on the last page of the toolkit. I hope you found this session invaluable, and I wish you the best of luck on your journey to resilience. It's definitely worth it. Thank you.